Alright, so when researching A Good Man Is Hard to Find and Allegory of the Cave, the first idea that popped up into my mind was this idea of enlightenment and responsibility that comes to the people that have a full knowledge of things. So the first one I looked at is A Good Man Is Hard to Find, and in it you see that the misfit is the responsible person. The grandmother also has the knowledge. The Good Man Is Hard to Find is a lot more specific than Allegory of the Cave is, so it's kind of weird comparing them. In Allegory of the Cave, you have people that are enlightened, and then the people that are enlightened all have to descend into darkness and help the people. But in A Good Man Is Hard to Find, there are people that have a full knowledge of things that don't help other people. And that's the people that you get, which, like the father, who is compared to the priest, who is only influenced by people that under his ministry that force him to do stuff by rallying against him, basically, and shouting, as the children do in the story. And so the misfit, being the responsible person, and the grandmother who recognizes him, he realizes that he has to help her and the rest of their family who has fallen away, and they're basically just driven by worldly desires now, as evidenced by the children who are completely obsessed with only worldly things and don't pay attention to, the more important things in life, really. You see that with the boy on the side of the road, that he's dressed very poorly, but he's happy, and he waves at them as they pass by, and all they notice about him is that he's only wearing breeches. So, the misfit takes responsibility for them by basically taking care of them, I guess. He shoots the grandmother 3 times in the chest, and obviously that's the Trinity, and he also takes care of the rest of the family. Some of them are less to blame. Obviously the children is more innocent than the father. The mother is kind of a standby. She doesn't have any real lines. She doesn't have any significance in the plot of the story. So then in Allegory of the Cave, the people that are enlightened have to descend into darkness, and this is the misfit obviously has to be around, he has to be able to help people like this. And, if he's compared to Jesus, he has to have his ministry on earth to touch people and save them. So, in talking about responsibility, one of the biggest things that came out to my mind was science, basically. And in it, you have to be able to correct your information and make it as clear as possible. If you have holes in science, or you're just throwing around theories or hypotheses, it's not solid. You have to be able to back it up with just straight math, really. And obviously what I think of is like natural selection. We have so many equations for finding biodiversity, seeing generation flow, and I thought that was interesting because I wanted to tap into the idea of responsibility, and I thought a lot of just how in science it's hard for you as a scientist to be responsible because you're already jumping through so many hoops as it is to already pass it between like peer journals and stuff. And there's so much incorrect information out there that people are able to get their hands on and think it's correct because they back it up as science, even though it has not been peer reviewed. It is just out there, like in the internet or in the ethos or whatever. But so I kind of brought it out a little bit, and I thought of just a creation, like something that somebody makes and then gives to other people that is supposed to add meaning to their life. And the first thing I thought of was art, and how big a deal art was because it can have any meaning and it can apply to any person. And the artist obviously has a responsibility of coming up with it. And they are responsible for this up to the point where they can at least get a majority of people to understand what they're trying to say. And it does come down to the individual because they have to be able to comprehend the idea that they're trying to portray in their painting. So if you have a painting like the first one I just thought of was in Guns of Germs of Steel, the top of the painting is the cover is Native Americans basically being slaughtered, and on it you can see a proud person, and I'm able to relate that to, you know, racism and like them being like Cortez and Pizarro being able to just come into the land and take whatever they want. But if somebody who's not able to understand or doesn't get the history of that would not be able to understand the concept that they were trying to portray in that painting. Or even, so yeah, so if you're not an informed person, you're not going to be able to understand concepts that somebody presented in a fashion that is in a specific way. Alright, so the novel that I was able to relate this most to is is Man's Search for Meaning. And I thought it was interesting because it was the idea that nobody else outside of Germany took responsibility for anything that happened in World War II. And it's not something that happens completely individually. Like, we've seen genocides either in Rwanda or in past. Obviously, the Cortez thing again. So it's not an idea that's exclusive to Germany. It's not something that Hitler just thought up and thought, oh, that was okay. He had seen other examples, and he took that into his own philosophy of him being against Judaism and just other anti-Semitic ideas. So I thought it was this opposing idea because the misfit took complete responsibility for them. At the very end of it, he said, there's no joy in this because he doesn't like killing people. That's not what he's around for. He's in it to save them, and he sees them go through this major emotional pain. But in Man's Search for Meaning, you see these people go through this horrible thing, and they struggle to survive, let alone retain their sanity. But at the end of it, the blame is placed wholly on Adolf Hitler and Germany, and they are responsible for everything that happened, all the fights, and even though this was not something that was new. So really, in the research, I just came to the conclusion that people that are enlightened share most of the responsibility. It is their job to make people realize what either they are doing wrong or just what they need to start doing. People that stand by and don't do anything, like the mother in A Good Man is Hard to Find, who notices what's happening. She's there, but she's not able, or she at least doesn't, do anything to improve her situation. She just lets it happen, you know. She lets the children become nasty, and the father just become a figurehead really in the family, the patriarch. So I thought the biggest idea is that responsibility does lie with the enlightened, and in the end, people that fall away are innocent in their actions. People that haven't received the information that they could because enlightened hasn't made it available unto them, it is the enlightened's fault. So, yeah.
All right.